Hey ho everybody, Haku here with my review of Fear the Walking Dead Season 2 Episode 4, Blood in the Streets. And I don't know. For this one, I feel like it was a relief. I feel like so far this season that every episode things have been getting a little bit better. It's like things have just been creeping a little bit better each episode. But this one was like every episode so far this season could have been like this episode, so it makes the other ones look like, okay, we're off to a pretty slow start. But what I mean by this being a relief is just like this show to me was not like the internal conflict in this show. That's, I guess, a good way to put it. The internal conflict in the show to me was just like little kids arguing back and forth. Like you're sitting in a waiting room somewhere and there's these little kids arguing back and forth. And this episode was like their mom telling them, you two need to shut up and calm down over there. That's what this episode was. It was just the relief from all the little impotent bickering. Just a good kind of quiet from that and bringing us into something better. Because you guys know I have been saying from the beginning of this that the only part that I really cannot stand about this show is the half-assed internal conflict that's just like kids bickering, and they need something like a big conflict to bring them all together to fight against the greater conflict. And I feel like this episode did that, and it did it well. It gave us more insight into our characters. The character development still carrying on pretty well, but it also introduced us to a bigger world that this needed. I still feel like we don't have enough walkers and stuff. Like, we're not having enough danger from the walkers. We've barely seen any, really. But the danger from the humans is cool too. I just don't want it to overshadow the danger that there's this outbreak. People are turning into freaking zombies, and it feels like that has not weighed on us yet. That we have not felt that hopelessness. We have not felt trapped like that yet. When the original series, not to compare it too much to the original series, because I like that it's different in this one because we're not as far into this. The whole apocalypse thing, we're not as far into it. But, what was it, maybe the second or third? It was the third episode where things really felt hopeless. Like the camp got attacked, we lost characters, and things felt a little hopeless. And you're fighting against that hopelessness. Like whether you're fighting against the zombies or fighting against another group, you're fighting against the hopelessness of this world. And in this show, I haven't seen that at all. We're not getting the feeling in it. So that's what I think I want more from the show now that we seem to have stopped the bickering. I think that instead of just going through the motions of fighting zombies or having conflict with people, we need to work on having the feeling that we are in danger. I do not feel like our characters are in very much danger and haven't felt that yet. And the other show does well at making you feel danger, that the characters are in danger, and this one has not quite done that yet. I don't feel danger for anyone. I haven't really felt danger for anyone, and that's the biggest thing that needs to change, is the feeling of it. So to start breaking this down part by part, we start off with Nick washes up on shore, lures in a walker to kill and use for the guts trick. And we get to pan out and see what is presumed to be the border with all of the boats and helicopters and stuff, which makes you think, okay, Mexico has to not have been hit as badly by the disease yet. And cutting back to in the ship, there's Travis with some impotent rage just bitching about Strand when we know he's not going to do anything or even say anything, but he was just bitching about that. And we have Chris and Ophelia guarding the ship, And I don't think a lot of people are being very critical of this, but I don't think that this was bad when the group just comes up and boards the ship. Because you think in that situation, they aren't killers. They don't know the dangers of people. It's only a few weeks in, like maybe 2-3 weeks at most. So they see people boarding their ship, especially what appears to be a pregnant woman in pain. They're not just going to immediately shoot them or whatever. So there wasn't a ton they could do. Most of them had just woken up. So it was a situation where they were caught off guard, and it wouldn't have been right because what if those people would have been good? It wouldn't have been right for them to just shoot those people at the deck. So I think at the point we're at in this apocalypse, the point we're at in this show, they still reacted in a perfectly sane way, I feel. So Strand goes for his gun, and Daniel has taken the ammunition from it. Alicia recognizes the voice of one of the guys as Jack, and that group then turns the tables on our group, which of course was a bit predictable. So for me, it's obvious that this group found them because of Alex, that they found Alex and Jake. To me, it just seems obvious because of the clues that are out there. It obviously wasn't Strand that called this group. Yeah, it couldn't have been. It obviously wasn't Strand that called this group. So that leaves only Alex or when Alicia was talking on the radio. And they made it clear that, well, one, it's already been days since then, so they have moved quite a bit of a ways towards the border from when all of the radio stuff took place. But even beyond that, they made a point of Alicia saying, "I never told them our names." And that line tells us that they knew their names from somewhere. It wasn't Strand, it wasn't Alicia. So the only other person that would have known their names and done that is either George Geary, but I doubt we're seeing him again, or Alex. And it's completely plausible to me that they found the raft with Alex and Jake floating around in the sea. Next up, we get Strand trying to escape in a raft, but they shoot the raft. And then we get a flashback to Strand before the outbreak, and we see him conning a dude named Thomas Abigail. We don't find out his name is Thomas Abigail quite yet, but we see him conning the dude and stealing his credit cards. From there, we cut back to our current time. And in the current time, they threaten Chris and end up getting Travis to go and hotwire the boat. That leads us into another flashback. Not even talking about all the stuff with just Strand struggling in the water, because that was kind of pointless, and it was really weird how close to the Abigail, to the boat he was, just sitting there struggling this entire episode. That was a little weird. That's all I'm going to bring up about it, though. But going back to the flashbacks, we get Luis and Thomas Abigail, and they come and confront Strand about the stolen credit cards, and Strand begins presumably working for Thomas Abigail. Nick then finds a gated community, and in this gated community, he ends up a little later in the episode running into Luis. So that was really cool, and it was interesting to note that some of the water pressure was still there and things like that. And it was a gated community with a wall around it. So Nick offered, why don't we just stay here? But Luis is like, it would be a lonely place to restart the world here. So, whatever. Maybe they could come back to that place later on. But I don't think we're going to stick to any place too Alexandria-ish, because this show is going to need to try to separate itself from the original show. So Madison, back on the boat, she uses her psychologist powers, her guidance counselor powers to rile up the pregnant chick and get her angry, and it was a big distraction by her and Ophelia to make it so that Daniel had the ability to loosen his ties some without the lady noticing. Now, Travis hides a small crowbar behind one of the behind one of the couch cushions as he's going from the engine room to the wheelhouse. And they all see, of course, that he drops off the crowbar there secretly without the other group knowing, the invaders. And from there we have Luis and Nick going to get back to the boat. They board a Zodiac to get back to the Abigail. And we find out that Luis's mom raised him and Thomas together, and she is waiting with Thomas at the Baja house complex that they have. So when Connor shows up, he takes Travis and Alicia to join his camp. And from there, once he leaves, as soon as he leaves, we have Nick and Luis approaching, and they see that there are people there. Luis shoots the 2 armed pirates, and the third guy, who is Reed, I believe his name is, Madison, is able to run, grab the crowbar, and stab him in the stomach, which made Daniel getting loose kind of redundant and not necessary if the person who was still in the ties was going to stab him anyway. Then we have our last flashback to the kiss between Strand and Abigail, and I saw it coming this episode, but before this episode I did not see at all this happening. It was pretty surprising to me. And a lot of people are arguing, what if Strand isn't really gay and he's just using Abigail? But I don't think that's the case. It seems to me that Strand really does care for him, and maybe it's an interesting dynamic where Strand has finally found someone that he loves and wants to be with, and that's why he's trying so desperately to get there, despite all the setbacks and having to bring on the extra people and everything. So I very much do feel like Strand is sort of a hard guy, but he isn't heartless. He does want to get our group to the Abigail complex and to see the person he loves again. So honestly, I gotta say that this was refreshing, and I did really sincerely enjoy it. I thought that it was how the story could have been from the start without the setbacks and stuff. There was just a lot to like about this one for me, but it still was not nearly a perfect episode by any means. So I think, I'm not sure what I gave last week's, but this was a little better than last week's to me, I think. Just a little bit. It's kind of close though. They're pretty close. They're almost tied in my eyes. But I think I'm going to give this one like maybe 8.5 surprise sexuality reveals out of 10. So 8.5 out of 10. I really like this one. Very, very closely matched with last episode for best one so far this season. I really liked a lot of the things, like introducing new characters and learning more about Strand's past. And I am so happy that we have moved past all the mindless bickering. I doubt that'll come back into play now that we have a specific goal, a specific thing that we're shooting for, which is rescuing Alicia and Travis. So I'll get more in depth on all that in my predictions. So I do want to thank you all and say like the video if you liked it. And comment down there, tell me what you thought of the episode, what you thought of my thoughts of the episode as well. Subscribe for more Fear the Walking Dead comics and TV show, Tower of God, One Piece, and a bunch more stuff. Just check out the channel, subscribe if you want to, because I will be doing at least 2 Walking Dead videos every single week. Also follow on Twitter if you want, because I'll keep you updated there on when I'm posting stuff or pushing anything back. And once again, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all next time.